Hey everybody, it's John Pollock alongside John Ramdeen and Robin Black. We're coming out of the UFC's card in Houston, Texas on Saturday night, the night before the football game, which none of us watched, so we're not going to discuss that game. Anyway, the Korean Zombie, Chan Sung Jung, comes back in this fight after getting rocked by a right hand by Dennis Bermudez, slipped a jab, and boom, landed that short right uppercut. And I think Brian Stann put it best. These things are not supposed to happen. When you look at the time off, and I mean, he was stating on the broadcast that he was training like before he would go to work, maybe 1 hour a day. I mean, it was hardly.
Do you believe that? It's all about misdirection. You don't want to give anybody your hand in mixed martial arts, especially when you're in a division where Conor McGregor has been a champion. We're talking about serious riches. You don't want to let anybody know what's been going on. You've been isolated for 3 years. How do you know he hasn't had the best training camp in the world?
Regardless, he has not seen competition in that time.
Yeah.
And I feel, the other side of the coin, George St. Pierre coming back after similar amounts of time. We know he's training, and I think we'd all have our questions about where George St. Pierre would be. So I was very impressed with this. I did not think he was going to win this fight.
I also, I don't know that people necessarily saw or appreciate how smart he was in that fight. Because you see him taking punches, and you start to think, oh, this is a zombie. He just kind of moves forward and gets hit. You're going to get hit when you're fighting a guy like Dennis. And Dennis sprints in for the takedown or that overhand. And he did it one or two too many times. And the Korean Zombie read his timing, and he read his load. And when he loads up to go, and he was able to detect what was coming, and he walked him into that uppercut. It was a very, very highly intelligent performance by
His
the
balance
Zombie.
was outstanding on that one attempt.
Yeah, once he knew what was coming, and it was literally a twofold. There were two bullets: the big overhand right and the double leg takedown, and that's exactly how Dennis should fight. That is an old school thing that doesn't seem to work all that well these days unless you're ultra good at those two bullets, and Dennis is ultra good at them, so he sticks with what works. But the problem is you start to read it. You start to just become sensitive to the timing, and that's what the Korean Zombie did. He knew he was going to take some shots, and he knew he was going to get drilled with the double leg, but he was able to handle it long enough to figure that timing out, and he just walked him right into that uppercut.
You and I were having this conversation about fighters relying on their toughness, and in a fight like this fight with Dennis Bermudez, you know you're going to get hit. I mean, it looked like Dennis Bermudez had the right game plan in mind. He was constantly going to try to take him down. The Zombie was going to get back up. He was going to take him down again. He was going to punish him, kick the legs, try to break this guy down. Because even though I had the sense that Dennis Bermudez was ahead when the Zombie landed that punch, it still felt that Dennis Bermudez was the guy in trouble. It was the pressure was on him because the Korean Zombie, it didn't seem like he was stressed out. As you pointed out, even though he was getting tagged, it's like, this is fighting. I just got to get used to this. But I felt that if Bermudez could continue to play this game, eventually the takedowns would come easier because Korean Zombie was fresh. But like you pointed out,
why do we talk about the psychology so often these days? It's because that part is heavy in there. These guys know how to fight. They know punchy kicky. And if you are Chan Sung Jung, you're looking at it and you know, I'm going to get taken down, this guy's going to blast double me, and he's going to land some really hard punches on me. And when you accept that reality, it sucks. I'm going to get punched in the head really, really hard by a super athlete. But once you accept that truth, it doesn't unsettle you as it starts to happen. It was a brilliant performance. I was blown away by the Korean Zombie, and it's really, really cool to see. Do-Ho Choi, the Korean Zombie, there are some fantastic martial artists in South Korea.
And this does a lot for Chan Sung Jung re-entering the featherweight division with a win over someone like Dennis Bermudez. I know a name that's been thrown out there for him is Cub Swanson, and that's probably the level you're looking at for Chan Sung Jung's next opponent. You can slot him in, I would say, at the rung right underneath your Jose Aldo or Max Holloway. I mean, he's at that level.
Yeah, when it comes down to name and fighting abilities and where you are in the pecking order, right now he's in that mix. I wouldn't be surprised to see 1 or 2 fights for the Korean Zombie. He's facing Max Holloway for the interim champion.
Can you imagine? Max Holloway, Chan Sung Jung.
Super cool. But you mentioned Cub Swanson. Well, his teammate, Do-Ho Choi, helped him get ready for this fight. So there's a lot of cool fights at 145 pounds. We talk about, the evolution of the sport. we're seeing the growth of each division. Right now, 145 pounds, 155 pounds, 170 pounds, and 185 pounds. Really some of the most exciting divisions ever in the history of the sport.
Yeah, amazing. And we'll may get into this a little more on 5 rounds later on today. But for the Korean Zombie, the really interesting thing for me, and it's the thing you and I were talking about before we got on the air, which was this idea that you're going to take abuse. You're in fighting. You get hit in the head. You know, that baseball or football or whatever the thing happened last night, those guys ram their heads into each other. That's a part of that game. You know, this part of this game is getting hit. When we see guys like Dominic Cruz who cannot get hit for a long period of time, or we see guys like Conor who goes and fights Eddie Alvarez and barely gets touched, you look at that and go, wouldn't it be great to fight that way? But only the best of the very best of the very best. And if you want to compete with them and get there, you have to accept the reality you're going to get hit. And I don't think the Korean Zombie just says, hit me, I'm going to take it. He deals with, it would be better to not get hit, but sometimes we will get hit. And that is one of his superpowers. He can take it.
Chan Sung Jung returned after 3.5 years away from the UFC and scores the first round stoppage victory over Dennis Bermudez.